What if you don't need to live in pain and suffering? What if you could give up your karma and have a life of abundance and joy? What if you could start creating magic and miracles that you never thought were possible? Get ready to listen, share, and experience the magic that is you. Now, here's the host of Creating Abundance with Ease radio show, Dr. Helen Gitlevich.
Welcome. I'm Dr. Helen Gitlevich on Creating Abundance with Ease, and today our show is spiritual wealth. Wow, huge topic. But before I go to the show, I'd like to talk a little bit about me. I'm a medical doctor who turned Access Consciousness Facilitator, Akashic Record teacher, founder of School of Akashic Records, Akashic School of Creation, and I'm now facilitating classes and teaching classes with Access Consciousness and Akashic Records around the world, changing people's lives, kind of like asking them to choose more for themselves. And today's show specifically about spiritual wealth, because people a lot of times think of wealth and spirituality like not working together or not even being in one sentence. So let me ask you a couple of questions. Have you decided that you are spiritual, conscious, and very evolved person? And do you actually value wealth? Or have you decided that you cannot have both? You can have only either or, uh, especially based on Buddha or Christ, when like Buddha actually left all his wealth and went to look for spirituality. And so are many spiritual people of the past. So do you value spirituality or do you value money? Do you have ease receiving money? Would you like to change that? Because this is the reality of physical world. We live in the physical world. So in order to survive, even I'm not even talking about thrive, it's having money, having wealth. But it's not just that, because a lot of people identify wealth as money. Mm-mm. Wealth is much more. Wealth, just like abundance, is kind of like, to me, is well-being or being or being you. So let's talk about all those aspects of wealth, because if you are not being you, or totally like not having wealth of you, you're not going to have money because you're cutting your receiving. Universe is abundant place. Let's close our eyes, unless you're driving. Please don't close your eyes if you're driving. I didn't say that. You didn't hear me say that. So, but if you're at home and if you're listening to it later or now, doesn't matter, close your eyes and just see our planet. Or don't close your eyes, you don't have to. See our planet, see the nature, the mountains, the forest. Well, we're destroying it, but see the jungle kind of in your eyes. Is it poor or is it wealthy? Think about the colors, the smells, the kind of like the animals, the plants, insects, because everything is kind of like buzzing and all the sounds. It's full of wealth. Earth itself, all the minerals, the gold, the silver, the platinum, all of that in the ground, oil, coal, all those precious metals, not so precious metals. all those elements. It's abundance, it's wealth. Nature doesn't think that in terms of spiritual versus physical. For the nature, for earth, it's all the same. There is no separation. I was actually coming home yesterday from Guatemala, facilitating amazing 2 classes, 3-day body class with access consciousness, and actually wealth with Akashic Records. And both classes were amazing. And I was in a taxi coming home from the airport. I met amazing human being. Um, we were talking about us, about the world, and about COVID. And his idea was that all of that that's going on in the world is because of separation, of discrimination, because he's like, we are all the same. But because we decided that it's Chinese virus, it's American virus, it's this, it's that, people isolated. And that's why it's kind of like when we're together, that's what wealth is. When we are in oneness, that's what wealth is. When we are thriving, when we are talking to each other, when we are communicating or in communion with each other, that's wealth. When we separate, when we discriminate, when we hate, when we kind of like create all that pain and suffering in the world, is that wealth? Or is it poverty? Poverty, spiritual poverty, I would say, as well as physical poverty. If we are one, would somebody who has more would give it to somebody who has less? Yes. And it's about choosing more, because money actually is not evil like a lot of religions will tell us, because money is just money. It's the tool. What you do with the money is what actually will influence how you look at money or how the money is used. You can use money for evil, like to take power over people or to create separation or hate or murder or killing, hiring somebody to kill another human being. Or you can use money to build school or to feed hungry or create a change in the world that create more awareness, more something that will create greater for the planet, greater for the people. It's how you use the money. So can you change the world more if you have money or if you don't have money? I wonder, because a lot of it is, let's say, we're talking about spiritual health. Actually, interestingly enough, I said spiritual health, but I'm talking about spiritual wealth. I wasn't supposed to say health, but wealth and health go hand in hand together. That's why they sound so similar. Because think about that. If the person is not healthy, does it matter if he or she has wealth? No. Wealth includes health. Wealth includes relationship. Wealth includes money. Wealth includes well-being. Wealth includes oneness and spirituality and more. All of that. We are so entrained in the kind of like lack mentality. how many of you grew up, or at least I did? I grew up in Russia when there was supposed to be equality of all, no separation. Yeah, right. Um, we had not too far from where I lived, it was called Tsar's Village, meaning, or King's Village, or King's Village. It was a development where government officials lived. It was totally closed. They had their own stores. They had their own kind of like almost like almost like a town inside of Moscow. And nobody could go in, but you could see through the fence big houses and pretty much abundance of everything. The servants versus people lived like we in tiny, not two bedrooms. It was 2-room apartment, probably a little bit more than a studio. Just like one tiny bedroom with a little living room and a tiny kitchen. But it's pretty much the size, like I'm looking at the bedroom in my house. Pretty much the whole apartment was the size of that bedroom. Um, and people kind of didn't complain or anything. But I grew up with a mentality that we cannot afford this. We don't have enough. My mom, being the head of internal medicine ward, was receiving 100 and I think it was 110 plus $17 for being the head of the ward. And it was barely enough to pretty much for food, not enough for clothes, but we managed. And so I grew up with that mentality, not enough. When I came to the United States, it was kind of the same because we came with nothing. With I remember talking to a friend of mine years later. She remembers like, remember like in college where we split a grilled cheese sandwich and the woman felt sorry for us, so she gave extra tomato to each one of us, like that garnish. And I'm like, yeah. But what's interesting, I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and that mentality kind of like still there in some ways because on an energetic and on mental level. Because when I went to buy gifts, I was looking at the tag, how much it was, thinking, can I afford it? Can I not afford it? And the prices were like $10, $20, $30, which is I can easily afford. But I was still thinking about the prices instead of what would I like to have. Right now we have our first break of the show, and I know the topic is very important for a lot of people. So when I come back, we'll talk more about it. And you've been listening to Creating Abundance with Ease with myself, Dr. Helen Gitlevich on Inspired Choices Network. We'll be right back.
Many of us live our lives based on karma, on the past, and all the unfinished business in our lives. What would you choose if you did not have karma, or if you could choose what you desired instead? By tuning into Creating Abundance with Ease radio show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich, you'll receive tools and inspiration you can use to create the abundance in your life. You are an infinite being with infinite choices. Are you ready to have ease with creating abundance? Listen for Creating Abundance with Ease radio show every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Creating Abundance with Ease show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to helen.g@att.net. Now, back to the program.
Welcome forward, everyone. I'm Dr. Helen Gitlevich on Creating Abundance with Ease. And today our show topic is spiritual wealth. Before we went on a break, we were talking a little bit about my childhood, and I'm probably not the only one that grew up with the notion that you have to kind of like watch your finances, make sure you can afford it, make sure that it's not out of your budget. Doesn't matter if you like it or not. And that poverty mentality a lot of times stops us because our point of view creates our reality. So if we have a point of view that we cannot afford, we cannot afford it. And money starts flowing out instead of flowing in. So what is wealth? Like we talk about that it's not just material possession, because you cannot take material possession with you. Spirituality. Can you take spirituality with you? Neither. So to me, spiritual wealth is about being happy. It's about joy of everything, anything that's going on in your life. That's what spiritual wealth is. And it doesn't matter how much money you have, and it doesn't matter how conscious you've decided you are, because part of it, a lot of people decided they're conscious, and you look at them and it's like, yeah, right, maybe not so much. And yet you look at another person who is not doing any classes, or she is just being themselves, happy with their family, with her or his friends, and people are happy to be around them. To me, that's the spiritual wealth. It's about the person choosing joy over misery, choosing happiness over hate, choosing being themselves versus trying to achieve something that somebody else told them you have to achieve. Because think of all those goals that you set up all throughout your life. It doesn't matter what they are. When you achieve it, were you happy? Probably for about 10 seconds, right? Maybe a day, maybe a year. And then you set up another goal, and then another and another. It's about kind of like almost like a race. To me, it's a rat race. It's looking at that hamster running in that wheel and thinking that, oh my God, if I go faster, I can get out. I can go faster. I can go faster. I can go faster. I can go faster, 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 faster. And then it falls and dies. That's how I felt all my life until I finally jumped off that, call it the Ferris wheel, hamster wheel, doesn't matter. And what's interesting, um, Wheels of Samskara comes to mind, meaning Wheel of Fortune. Or if you ever seen History of the World Part 1, Wheel of Torture is in there during Inquisition. And if you've never seen History of the World Part 1 by Mel Brooks, oh my God, you have to. It's totally will teach you what is wealth of being, or what's not wealth of being. It's about the choices we make throughout our lives and the wheel that we go on or treadmill. You can have any analogy. You can talk about any pictures in your mind, but they all very relevant. Ever when we are born, we are told that we have to be something or somebody. And that something or somebody is usually the idea of you have to be a doctor, a lawyer, or teacher, or whatever your family believe in. You have to achieve it to be happy. But they never talk about happiness. They talk about wealth. They talk about, oh, you have to achieve this. Otherwise, what? And I remember Gary Douglas, founder of Access, he was talking about his childhood. And every time when somebody asked Gary what he wants to be when he grows up, he would say happy. Because the child, that's what he wants to be. And we don't think about that in that terms. We don't think about the wealth of who we are, the wealth of happiness, the wealth of joy. But that's what spiritual wealth is. It has nothing to do with the amount of money. And yet, when people are poor and struggling, some of them are happy, but some of them are struggling and suffering. Um, I was talking to a couple of weeks ago about a guy in, I don't remember, one country where there were a lot of poverty. And it's kind of like struggling to get food on the table. You don't think about spirituality. You think about the food getting on the table. You don't think about happiness. You just want to feed your children. And when you feed your children, maybe you're happy. And it's not a wrongness. It's more about how can we change the world? And what if we can start creating more wealth so we can start changing the poverty, the earth being destroyed, even COVID? Seriously, if there is a little bit more hygiene around the world, a lot of times COVID might not have been in existence. And I'm not talking about masks, I'm sorry. I'm not going to go into politics. I'm not supposed to say anything about politics, but I have my own interesting point of view about masks. I was in Mexico and I wasn't wearing a mask anywhere pretty much. I think about once somebody said, oh, you have to wear a mask in the tiny little store. And I'm like, okay, I walked out because I forgot my mask. I didn't get COVID. I'm still negative. Just had my test done. I'm just curious if we can create antibodies without vaccination. And what can we create in the world based on our desires instead of fears? Because everything that's going on in the world right now is based on fear. The bombing, the separation, the hate, the viruses, the masks, vaccines, it's all from fear. Is that part of spiritual wealth? No. Spiritual wealth is about being who we are. Fears are not part of who we are. Fears are programming. Fears are destructor implants, as Access Consciousness talks about. It's the implants of programming or emotions that kind of like create separation, create distraction and destruction, distraction and destruction, distraction from our lives and distraction of us. Because when we are in fear or anger or anything like that, what happens? We separate, but we not just separate from other people, we separate from ourselves. When you're in fear, a lot of people get paralyzed, literally. And there is an expression, paralyzed from fear. They cannot function when they're in fear. And that's what's going on in the world a lot of times. People are afraid, so everything stops. Physically, like the whole world stopped when the COVID started. Like in March, I remember flying one of the last flights from Barcelona, because Barcelona closed out. Because I was in Europe. I was in Italy when it started, and kind of like, okay, Italy is closing down. I moved to Dublin. I was taking a class with Gary Douglas. I was supposed to teach a class in Israel when Israel closed. So I couldn't facilitate a class in Israel. I'm like, okay, I'll go to Austria. Austria closed. I went to Spain, and then finally the whole Europe was closed. So I had to get out. It was, I think, either 1 or 2 days before there was no flights available. So I flew home and was in quarantine. The whole world stopped. I don't know for how long, a few months. That was fear that stopped everything. Was it necessary? Maybe. Was it not necessary? Maybe. I'm not going to judge or say anything about it. It was a choice of the governments to close the countries. Choices create something. So with us, we can choose for us or against us. And choice. Oh, time flies. It's time for our second break of the show. And I'm going to stop now and we'll talk more when I come back. So you've been listening to Creating Abundance with Ease with myself, Dr. Helen Gitlevich on Inspired Choices Network. And we'll be right back.
Many of us live our lives based on karma, on the past, and all the unfinished business in our lives. What would you choose if you did not have karma, or if you could choose what you desired instead? By tuning into Creating Abundance with Ease radio show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich, you'll receive tools and inspiration you can use to create the abundance in your life. You are an infinite being with infinite choices. Are you ready to have ease with creating abundance? Listen for Creating Abundance with Ease radio show every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Magic and abundance are everywhere. What if you could tap into abundance and start creating your life with complete and total ease? Working with Dr. Helen Gitlevich will give you exactly that, total ease in creating abundance in your life. Dr. Gitlevich creates classes all over the world, both in person and online. She works with you to create abundance with your money, with your body, with your relationships, with all areas of your life with total ease. Connect with Dr. Helen Gitlevich at creatingabundancewithease.com. Her contribution in your world will be a noticeable gift in a very short period of time.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Creating Abundance with Ease show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to helen.g@att.net. Now, back to the program.
Hi, welcome forward, everyone. I'm Dr. Helen Gitlevich on Creating Abundance with Ease, and today our show topic is spiritual wealth. So, before we went on the break, I kind of went a little bit on a political rampage, but no, let's talk about spirituality in its kind of like the wealthy aspect. Let's talk a little bit about who we are, what we are. The wealth itself, as I said, it's about being joy, being kind of like everything. And doesn't matter what are the distractions around you, it's about choosing for you. That's when you are in that spiritual wealth, in the flow of things. We also talk a little bit about our points of view create our reality. So if we kind of have a point of view of poverty mentality, that's what will keep creating and recreating. It's the choices we make. And people say, oh, I need to make the right choice to get to wealth, to get to the spirituality. It doesn't matter what your path is. It's about, a lot of times we look at our choices as decision. And decision is not a choice. When you're looking for the right choice, that's not a choice. And let's play a little game. You're going to die. COVID or meteor or like asteroid or something is going to happen in your life, and you know you have 10 seconds to live your life. What would you choose in the next 10 seconds of your life? Yeah. Would you choose to suffer or would you choose something else? Cool. 10 seconds is over. You're still alive. What would you choose? I wonder. Because what if you chose what brings you joy in that 10 seconds? Because you're going to die anyway. So why not choose something that brings you joy? 10 seconds is over. What would you choose next? Yeah, you didn't die. So what if you lived your life from that? Or like, I remember reading somewhere or hearing somewhere that you have to live your life like tomorrow does not exist, like tomorrow you die. But we forget about it. We do grand plans and we're upset that those grand plans don't happen. But what if spiritual health and wealth is just you being you? You choosing in the moment what brings you happiness. And what if you stop choosing what brings you misery? Even the relationships that's not working, What if you have ability to change it? I'm not saying leave it, but maybe you have the ability to change, because a lot of things in the relationship is based on old trauma and drama, past hurt. All of it is in the past. It's like we're going through again that wheels of samskara, as I started with, wheels of suffering, wheels of torture, where that hamster is running from the past into the future, back to the past, back to the future, and it goes and it goes and it goes. And um, you remember my life, it was like on the top, then go down, on the top, go down, on the top, go down. It was like always going through the cycles or periods. What if you don't have to go through the periods or cycles? What if you can choose every single day? What will make me happy today? What grand and glorious adventure can I have today? Access has amazing tool. Access was created by Gary Douglas and Dr. Dan Hare. An amazing tool, mantra. All of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. And it's literally that ease, joy, and glory is the spiritual wealth I'm talking about. Because you are wealthy if you're happy. You're wealthy if you feel joy, if you are laughing, if you have ease. And I'm talking about ease with everything, ease with money, ease with health, ease with relationship. It's about choosing for you, not against you, but for you. And that's again tricky because a lot of people say, oh, that's selfish. Yeah, it's selfish, but think about it. On the airplane, what do they tell you? If something happens, put the oxygen mask on you first, not on the child, not on somebody next to you, on you first, and then on everybody else. Because if you passed out, if you don't have the energy, if you don't have the money, if you're hungry, can you actually do anything for other people? Can you support other people if you don't have money? Can you kind of like bring joy to other people if you're not happy? Joy is contagious, but so is misery. If you come with a story of I feel so bad, oh my God, how does everybody else feels? They start contracting. But what if you came in? I had such an amazing day. Everything is wonderful. I just won $1 million. And who would like to have more money now? What can you create? What can you create in the world if you're happy? And what I found when I'm happy, everything looks wonderful, but also people start smiling. As I said, it's contagious. Even when I go to the store, if I'm happy and I look around and I smile to people, that sometimes bring that spiritual wealth to other people. What if you don't have to cut off your joy? What if you don't have to cut off your wealth just because it's not spiritual or it's not what is it called? Not in the best traditions of the or really not religious or whatever it is, whatever points of view you have that limits your wealth. Would you be willing to kind of like let it go and forget about them? Or just let it go? Not even forget, because a lot of times if we just forget about it, they still stuck in our subconscious. It's not about forgetting, it's about letting go. It's about choosing joy, choosing what works for you. So, with everything that's going on in your life, let's do a little exercise. And that's a tool for the week. If you say mantra 10 times, it actually can change your life. I know if I don't say it in the morning, it's going to be kind of like not as ease filled day. And by the way, it's not about easy. It's don't kind of like have expectation that if you say the mantra, your life suddenly becomes totally easy and nothing is going to happen to you. Blah, 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 blah. No, but it's about all of life, meaning everything, good, bad, and ugly, is you take it with ease, with joy, and with glory, in glorious abundance of everything, pretty much. Exuberant abundance and happiness. So let's do it together 10 times. I actually like Rachel Silver and I, she's also facilitated with Access Consciousness. We did 100 days of doing mantra and clearing in a group, Facebook group, um, being without hiding, and you can check it out if you want. But we finished it yesterday. Yesterday was day 100. So here it goes. All of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. All of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. All of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. All of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. All of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. All of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. All of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. All of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. All of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. And all of life comes to us with ease, joy, and glory. And it's time for our third and final break of the show. And you've been listening to Creating Abundance with Ease with myself, Helen Gitlevich, on Inspired Choices Network. And we'll be right back.
Many of us live our lives based on karma, on the past, and all the unfinished business in our lives. What would you choose if you did not have karma, or if you could choose what you desired instead? By tuning into Creating Abundance with Ease radio show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich, you'll receive tools and inspiration you can use to create the abundance in your life. You are an infinite being with infinite choices. Are you ready to have ease with creating abundance? Listen for Creating Abundance with Ease radio show every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
This is the Creating Abundance with Ease show with Dr. Helen Gitlevich. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email by sending to helen.g@att.net. Now, back to the program.
So, welcome forward, everyone. And you've been listening to me, Dr. Helen Gitlevich, on Creating Abundance with Ease. And today our show is Spiritual Wealth. And I was just asked, what's next week? Because I'm here every single Wednesday at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time, 10 o'clock Mountain, 9 o'clock Pacific, and I think 12 o'clock Eastern Time. I'm not very good with time. Time is not relevant. So tomorrow we are going to have a show, Are You a Killer? And with everything, he'll say, what? Yeah. And let's play with that. Are you killing your possibilities and opportunities? Are you killing your money flow? Are you killing your body? And that's kind of like what we'll be talking about. It's necessarily killing another person. So we've done all of that in other lifetimes, or we've been killed. We've done and been everything. And so with our today's show, actually, it kind of flows into the next week because we are the ones that killing our spiritual wealth. We are the one that's not allowing the universe to contribute to us because universe is abundant. Like in the beginning of the show, and if you start it now, you can listen to it later on. We talked about nature. Nature is abundant. There is no lack, and there is no separation between spiritual and physical. Everything is just energy, the humming of energy. And I love being in nature by myself with no people around because then you can be truly, I mean, you can have like a friend who is kind of similar to you or friends, but I'm talking about not like general population or crowds. When there are crowds, everybody has their own points of view and they project it onto the nature, onto everybody. And we are bombarded by all of those points of view, all those kind of feelings, emotions, separation, all of that is part of that universal consciousness. And they might not even be present there, they might be a mile away, but we still pick it up. And a lot of times, those points of view, those feelings, also limit our spiritual wealth or physical wealth or emotional wealth. All of that is not a contribution to our life and living. So, what if we start with mantra or just asking questions? The more questions you ask, the more you start opening up the possibility from the universe to contribute to you. Because universe is the one that is shifting and changing. Universe is the one that um, creating kind of like I like that Rachel Silber, she remembered the movie. I think it's one of the Avengers, or I'm sorry, X-Men, not Avengers, X-Men. Uh, and one of the guys has a high speed, so he moves around at a very high speed, so it looks like everybody else standing still. And he goes around people at ear ranges. Like one is like the bullet goes there, or the arm moves there. This is a universe around us because universe is extremely fast. The energy moves very fast. So if we ask for something, the universe starts rearranging the molecules around us so we can create that. We are the one that's not allowing it by our points of view, by our fears. Oh, it's not going to happen. The universe looks at that. Oh, it's not going to happen. Cool. We'll stop it. It doesn't recognize when you ask from fear or from resistance, or if you're asking from desires and choosing happiness. This is about you choosing more for you. That's what spiritual wealth is. Following the energy, what creates more for you, what allows you to move and shift around you. This is more about who you are, what you are, and how you interact with the world. This is about you being present in your life. This is probably one of the key elements. When we are present in our lives, we allow the universe to contribute constantly. When we are not, when we kind of like somewhere else, someone or something like like our relatives, our friends, if we have points of view that we picked up from them, that's how we create our lives, not from our desires, from theirs. And I know for years I was creating from my mom's desires for me. And doesn't, I don't, I'm not saying that it was bad. It wasn't what I desire. Or even my daughter was creating her life from what I desired for her, what her grandma desired for her, what her dad desired for her. Kind of like she was picking up, not being even aware that she wasn't creating her life. Right now she is. She's choosing for her every moment of the day. She's choosing to create more of what works for her, not what works for me or what I desire for her, but what works for her in the moment. And she is actually creating the spiritual wealth much more than I ever did at her age or even now. And how cool. I'm learning a lot from her. I'm learning from people who are choosing for themselves. And our show is kind of like coming to the end, but not the end, because next week we'll meet for Are You a Killer? And also, you can join me on in different classes. I'm doing a free Zoom, Wealth of Being, on June 1st, which is coming next week. Also, I'm going to Dallas, Texas for 3-day body class. I'll facilitate that on 11th of June. I'm going to England to facilitate body class. At the end of June, I believe it's 25th, 26th, and 27th, co-facilitating with Vanita, and hopefully going to Taiwan in July as soon as world opens up, and wherever you desire me in the world. This is about us creating together, not separate. This is about you listening to this and maybe choosing something more for you. Maybe choosing a little bit more wealth in your life. Maybe choosing a little bit more of awareness, consciousness in your life. And the more conscious we become, the happier we become. At least that's my own experience with that. The more I choose to be aware, the less I choose what doesn't work for me. Because a lot of times we go against us, not because we desire it, but because we're unaware. Those milliseconds of unconsciousness creates the trauma and drama and pain in our lives. So you can find out more about the classes, about next free Zooms or free Facebook Lives on my website, Creating Abundance with Ease, or accessconsciousness.com website, or join me on Facebook or Instagram. I'm pretty much on most social media, not maybe as active as some people would like me to be, because again, I'm choosing for me, not against me. And what if you, for the next, let's say, week, until we meet again, you would do mantra 10 times in the morning, 10 times at night, or whenever you remember, and see if it changes anything. See if you can choose at least once a day something that brings you joy. And at least once a day, smile at somebody that you meet that you don't know, maybe in a store. And I know where a lot of us are wearing masks, our eyes still smile. I remember being in the airport and the guy said, "I like your smile," and I was wearing a mask. So next week.
Thank you for
Bye.
choosing to listen to Creating Abundance with Ease radio show. Dr. Helen Gitlevich will return next Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Central, 10 a.m. Mountain, and 9 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have fun using the tools of the week in your life and start creating magic in your life and your body.